Let's talk now to Joshua Mahony, who's Chief Market Analyst at Scope Markets. Good to talk to you, Joshua. So, plenty of uncertainty around at the weekend, and markets really hate uncertainty, don't they? How have European shares reacted to this?
Yeah, I mean, the key point that you're making here is that it was uncertainty over the course of the weekend. So we didn't necessarily see a big move in terms of volatility on this news in the first place that is now unwinding. Instead, we've seen it all play out. It began and it ended seemingly over the course of the weekend. In terms of the moves that we're seeing for some of these defense stocks, you know, the weakness for some of these stocks, I don't think it's necessarily justified. Ultimately, many of them cannot sell to Russia anyway. So what's happening internally is unlikely to hinder the expansion of this war with Ukraine. I think that's likely to continue. So I think those stocks are generally going to do relatively well. But the question mark around about how markets are feeling and a perception of risk within markets is that at the moment they seem relatively calm. We haven't necessarily seen major drops. And in actual fact, if you see the weakness over in the US indices, a lot of that is focused around tech stocks, the NASDAQ leading the declines. And within Europe, as you said, the CAC actually moving higher, the FTSE 100 moderately lower. But for the time being, everyone's trying to understand exactly what's happening here and whether we are going to see it flare up once again. But it seems like we've got some sort of calm resolution as things stand.
There were some sectors, though, where we saw a bit of a sell-off, defence for one, aerospace, some financial stocks. Were there any winners today, though?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, look, I would say, like I said, a lot of the areas that have been weak have been mainly around, say, the tech sector over in the US. In terms of Europe, more domestically focused stocks doing relatively well. But yeah, I don't necessarily say that this is a day of major volatility per se. Maybe some initial movements that we've seen unwinding a little bit. But really, markets appear to be relatively sanguine as they wait for potentially market moving events, which this of course would have seemed like over the course of the weekend. But the way we stand at the moment is quite difficult for people to really ascertain exactly what the state of play is and how to sort of position themselves off of the events in Russia.
And we are, of course, really in the middle of a bigger period of geopolitical uncertainty, which this is part of. Reuters reporting that Deutsche Bank says it can't guarantee its clients access to Russian stocks they hold. This really is quite a difficult time for investors, isn't it?
Yes, but what I would say is, you know, certainly from the perspective of someone in London like myself, if you're going to be investing in Russian stocks as someone within mainland Europe or within the US, they're probably going to perceive those kind of investments as a high-risk strategy, on the expectation that maybe down the line we get some sort of resolution and then that's going to benefit them over the longer term. But certainly for now, you know, if someone's complaining at the fact that their stocks in the Russian markets aren't necessarily liquid, you would probably like to say, well, this has been going on for some time, and arguably you could say that Russia always seems to be under one level of sanctions or another. You know, that's arguably one of the more risky areas to be playing in the markets.